Hi, I'm MC Jessie.
大家好，讀你聽2.0，今日繼續讀 Miguel de Cervantes 嘅 Don Quixote， 讀到第37節啦。呢節個名叫做 In which is continued the story of the famous princess Micomicona with other droll adventures。仲有好多滑稽可笑嘅歷險將會發生。咁想會發生咩事呢？就係有情人終成眷屬啦，一個四角關係喺一個非常巧合嘅情況之下，喺作者嘅精心鋪排之下呢，完結啦。四個關係都告一段落，咁個旅程就應該繼續噶喎。但係奇怪呢，就係呢一節嘅title呢，佢主題呢，竟然仲係提住 Micomicona喎。難道多啲人會繼續上路？咁我就要睇下啦。跟住我哋交俾 Costa 同大家讀嚟聽。
To all this Sancho listened with no little sorrow at heart, to see how his hopes of dignity were fading away and vanishing in smoke, and how the fair princess Micomicona had turned into Dorothea, and the giant into Don Fernando, while his master was sleeping tranquilly, totally unconscious of all that had come to pass. Dorothea was unable to persuade herself that her present happiness was not all a dream. Cardenio was in a similar state of mind, and the Cinder's thoughts ran in the same direction. Don Fernando gave thanks to heaven for the favour shown to him, and for having been rescued from the intricate labyrinth in which he had been brought so near the destruction of his good name and of his soul. And in short, everybody in the inn was full of contentment and satisfaction at the happy issue of such a complicated and hopeless business. The curate, as a sensible man, made sound reflections upon the whole affair, and congratulated each upon his good fortune, but the one that was in the highest spirits and good humour was the landlady, because of the promise Cardenio and the curate had given her to pay for all the losses and damage she had sustained through Don Quixote's means. Sancho, as has been already said, was the only one who was distressed, unhappy, and dejected, and so with a long face he went in to his master, who had just awoke, and said to him, Sir rueful countenance, your worship may as well sleep on as much as you like, without troubling yourself about killing any giant or restoring her kingdom to the princess, for that is all over and settled now. I should think it was, replied Don Quixote, for I have had the most prodigious and stupendous battle with the giant that I ever remember having had all the days of my life, and with one backstroke, swish, I brought his head tumbling to the ground, and so much blood gushed forth from him that it ran in rivulets over the earth like water. Like red wine, your worship had better say, replied Sancho, for I would have you know, if you don't know it, that the dead giant is a hacked wine skin, and the blood 24 gallons of red wine that it had in its belly, and the cut-off head is the bitch that bore me, and the devil take it all. What art thou talking about, fool? Said Don Quixote. Art thou in thy senses? Let your worship get up, said Sancho, and you will see the nice business you have made of it, and what we have to pay, and you will see the queen turn into a private lady called Dorothea, and other things that will astonish you, if you understand them. I shall not be surprised at anything of the kind, returned Don Quixote, for if thou dost remember the last time we were here, I told thee that everything that happened here was a matter of enchantment, and it would be no wonder if it were the same now. I could believe all that, replied Sancho, if my blanketing was the same sort of thing also. Only it wasn't, but real and genuine. For I saw the landlord, who is here today, holding one end of the blanket and jerking me up to the skies very neatly and smartly, and with as much laughter as strength. And when it comes to be a case of knowing people, I hold for my part, simple and sinner as I am, that there is no enchantment about it at all, but a great deal of bruising and bad luck. Well, well, God will give a remedy, said Don Quixote. Hand me my clothes and let me go out, for I want to see these transformations and things thou speakest of. Sancho fetched him his clothes, and while he was dressing, the curate gave Don Fernando and the others present an account of Don Quixote's madness, and of the stratagem they had made use of to withdraw him from the Pena Pobre, where he fancied himself stationed because of his lady's scorn. He described to them also nearly all the adventures that Sancho had mentioned, at which they marvelled and laughed not a little, thinking it, as all did, the strangest form of madness a crazy intellect could be capable of. But now, the curate said, that Lady Dorothea's good fortune prevented her from proceeding with the purpose. It would be necessary to devise or discover some other way of getting him home. Cardenio proposed to carry out the scheme they had begun, and suggested that Lucinda would act and support Dorothea's part sufficiently well. No, said Don Fernando, that must not be, for I want Dorothea to follow up this idea of hers, and if the worthy gentleman's village is not very far off, I shall be happy if I can do anything for his relief. It is not more than 2 days' journey from this, said the curate. Even if it were more, said Don Fernando, I would gladly travel so far for the sake of doing so good a work. At this moment, Don Quixote came out in full panoply, with Mambrino's helmet, all dinted as it was, on his head, his buckler on his arm, and leaning on his staff or pike. The strange figure he presented filled Don Fernando and the rest with amazement, as they contemplated his lean yellow face half a league long, his armor of all sorts, and the solemnity of his deportment. They stood silent, waiting to see what he would say, and he, fixing his eyes on the fair Dorothea, addressed her with great gravity and composure. I am informed, fair lady, by my squire here that your greatness has been annihilated and your being abolished, since from a queen and lady of high degree as you used to be, you have been turned into a private maiden. If this has been done by the command of the magician king your father, through fear that I should not afford you the aid you need and are entitled to, I may tell you he did not know and does not know half the mass, and was little versed in the annals of chivalry. For if he had read and gone through them as attentively and deliberately as I have, he would have found at every turn that knights of less renown than mine have accomplished things more difficult. It is no great matter to kill a whelp of a giant, however arrogant he may be, for it is not many hours since I myself was engaged with one, and I will not speak of it, that they may not say I am lying. Time, however, that reveals all, will tell the tale when we least expect it. You were engaged with a couple of wineskins, not a giant, said the landlord at this, but Don Fernando told him to hold his tongue and on no account interrupt Don Quixote, who continued, I say in conclusion, high and disinherited lady, that if your father has brought about this metamorphosis in your person for the reason I have mentioned, you ought not to attach any importance to it, for there is no peril on earth through which my sword will not force away, and with it, before many days are over, I will bring your enemy's head to the ground and place on yours the crown of your kingdom. Don Quixote said no more, and waited for the reply of the princess, who, aware of Don Fernando's determination to carry on the deception until Don Quixote had been conveyed to his home, with great ease of manner and gravity made answer, Whoever told you, valiant knight of the rueful countenance, that I had undergone any change or transformation did not tell you the truth, for I am the same as I was yesterday. It is true that certain strokes of good fortune that have given me more than I could have hoped for have made some alteration in me, but I have not therefore ceased to be what I was before, or to entertain the same desire I have had all through of availing myself of the might of your valiant and invincible arm. And so, Signor, let your goodness reinstate the father that begot me in your good opinion, and be assured that he was a wise and prudent man, since by his craft he found out such a sure and easy way of remedying my misfortune. For I believe, Signor, that had it not been for you, I should never have lit upon the good fortune I now possess. And in this I am saying what is perfectly true, as most of these gentlemen who are present can fully testify. All that remains is to set out on our journey tomorrow, for today we could not make much way, and for the rest of the happy result I am looking forward to, I trust to God and the valor of your heart. So said the sprightly Dorothea, and on hearing her, Don Quixote turned to Sancho and said to him, with an angry air, I declare now, little Sancho, that thou art the greatest little villain in Spain. Say, thief and vagabond, hast thou not just now told me that this princess had been turned into a maiden called Dorothea, and that the head which I am persuaded I cut off from a giant was the that bore thee, and other nonsense that put me in the greatest perplexity I have ever been in all my life? I vow I have a mind to play the mischief with thee in a way that will teach sense for the future to all lying squires of knights errant in the world. Let your worship be calm, Signor, returned Sancho, for it may well be that I have been mistaken as to the change of the lady Princess Micomicona. But as to the giant's head, or at least as to the piercing of the wineskins, and the blood being red wine, I make no mistake, as sure as there is a God, because the wounded skins are there at the head of your worship's bed, and the wine has made a lake of the room. If not, you will see when the eggs come to be fried. I mean when his worship the landlord calls for all the damages. For the rest, I am heartily glad that her ladyship, the queen, is as she was, for it concerns me as much as anyone. I tell thee again, Sancho, thou art a fool, said Don Quixote. Forgive me, and that will do. That will do, said Don Fernando. Let us say no more about it. And as her ladyship the princess proposes to set out tomorrow because it is too late today, so be it. And we will pass the night in pleasant conversation, and tomorrow we will all accompany Signor Don Quixote, for we wish to witness the valiant and unparalleled achievements he is about to perform in the course of this mighty enterprise which he has undertaken. It is I who shall wait upon and accompany you, said Don Quixote, and I am much gratified by the favour that is bestowed upon me, and a good opinion entertained of me, which I shall strive to justify, or it shall cost me my life, or even more, if it can possibly cost me more. Many were the compliments and expressions of politeness that passed between Don Quixote and Don Fernando, but they were brought to an end by a traveller who at this moment entered the inn, and who seemed from his attire to be a Christian lately come from the country of the Moors, for he was dressed in a short-skirted coat of blue cloth with half sleeves and without a collar. His breeches were also of blue cloth, and his cap of the same colour, and he wore yellow buskins, and had a Moorish cutlass slung from a baldric across his breast. Between him, mounted upon an ass, there came a woman dressed in Moorish fashion, with her face veiled and a scarf on her head, and wearing a little brocaded cap, and a mantle that covered her from her shoulders to her feet. The man was of robust and well-proportioned frame, in age a little over 40, rather swarthy in complexion, with long moustaches and a long full beard, and, in short, his appearance was such that if he had been well dressed he would have been taken for a person of quality and good birth. When entering, he asked for a room, and when they told him there was none in the inn, he seemed distressed, and approaching her, who by her dress seemed to be a Moor, he took her down from the saddle in his arms. Lucinda, Dorothea, the landlady, her daughter, and Maritornes, attracted by the strange and to them entirely new costume, gathered round her, and Dorothea, who was always kindly, courteous, and quick-witted, perceiving that both she and the man who had brought her were annoyed at not finding a room, said to her, "Do not be put out, Signora, but a discomfort and want of luxuries here, for it is the way of roadside inns to be without them. Still, if you will be pleased to share our lodging with us, perhaps you will have found worse accommodation in the course of your journey." To this the veiled lady made no reply. All she did was to rise from her seat, crossing her hands upon her bosom, bowing her head and bending her body as a sign that she returned thanks. From her silence, they concluded that she must be a Moor and unable to speak a Christian tongue. At this moment the captive came up, having been until now otherwise engaged, and seeing that they all stood round his companion and that she made no reply to what they addressed to her, he said, "Ladies, this damsel hardly understands my language and can speak none but that of her own country, for which reason she does not and cannot answer what has been asked of her." "Nothing has been asked of her," returned Lucinda. "She has only been offered our company for this evening and a share of the quarters we occupy, where she shall be made as comfortable as the circumstances allow. With the goodwill we are bound to show all strangers that stand in need of it, especially if it be a woman to whom the service is rendered." "On her part and my own, Signora," replied the captive, "I kiss your hands, and I esteem highly, as I ought, the favour you have offered, which, on such an occasion and coming from persons of your appearance, is, it is plain to see, a very great one." "Tell me, Signor," said Dorothea, "is this lady a Christian or a Moor? For her dress and her silence lead us to imagine that she is what we could wish she was not. In dress and outwardly," said he, "she is a Moor, but at heart she is a thoroughly good Christian, for she has the greatest desire to become one." "Then she has not been baptized," returned Lucinda. "There has been no opportunity for that," replied the captive, "since she left Algiers, her native country and home, and up to the present she has not found herself in any such imminent danger of death as to make it necessary to baptize her before she has been instructed in all the ceremonies our Holy Mother Church ordains. But, please God, ere long she shall be baptized with a solemnity befitting her, which is higher than her dress or mine indicates." By these words he excited a desire in all who heard him, to know who the Moorish lady and the captive were, but no one liked to ask just then, seeing that it was a fitter moment for helping them to rest themselves than for questioning them about their lives. Dorothea took the Moorish lady by the hand and leading her to a seat beside herself, requested her to remove her veil. She looked at the captive as if to ask him what they meant and what she was to do. He said to her in Arabic that they asked her to take off her veil, and thereupon she removed it and disclosed a countenance so lovely that to Dorothea she seemed more beautiful than Lucinda, and to Lucinda more beautiful than Dorothea, and all the bystanders felt that if any beauty could compare with theirs, it was the Moorish lady's, and there were even those who were inclined to give it somewhat the preference. And as it is the privilege and charm of beauty to win the heart and secure goodwill, all forthwith became eager to show kindness and attention to the lovely Moor. Don Fernando asked the captive what her name was, and he replied that it was Lila Zoraida. But the instant she heard him, she guessed what the Christian had asked, and said hastily, with some displeasure and energy, "No, not Zoraida, Maria, Maria," giving them to understand that she was called Maria and not Zoraida. These words, and the touching earnestness which she uttered them, drew more than one tear from some of the listeners, particularly the women, who are by nature tender-hearted and compassionate. Lucinda embraced her affectionately, saying, "Yes, yes, Maria, Maria," to which the Moor replied, "Yes, yes, Maria, Zoraida McCanch," which means not Zoraida. Night was now approaching, and by the orders of those who accompanied Don Fernando, the landlord had taken care and pains to prepare for them the best supper that was in his power. The hour therefore having arrived, they all took their seats at a long table like a refectory one, for round or square table there was none in the inn. And the seat of honor at the head of it, though he was for refusing it, they assigned to Don Quixote, who desired the Lady Micomicona to place herself by his side, as he was her protector. Lucinda and Zoraida took their places next her. Opposite to them were Don Fernando and Cardenio, and next the captive and the other gentleman, and by the side of the ladies, the curate and the barber. And so they supped in high enjoyment, which was increased when they observed Don Quixote leaving off eating, and moved by an impulse like that which made him deliver himself at such length when he supped with the goatherds, begin to address them. "Verily, gentlemen, if we reflect upon it, great and marvellous are the things they see, who make profession of the order of knight-errantry. Say, what being is there in this world, who entering the gate of this castle at this moment, and seeing us as we are here, would suppose or imagine us to be what we are? Who would say that this lady who is beside us was the great queen that we all know her to be, or that I am that knight of the rueful countenance, trumpeted far and wide by the mouth of fame? Now, there can be no doubt that this art and calling surpasses all those that mankind has invented, and is the more deserving of being held in honor in proportion as it is the more exposed to peril. Away with those who assert that letters have the preeminence over arms. I will tell them, whosoever they may be, that they know not what they say. For the reason with such persons commonly assigned, and upon which they chiefly rest, is that the labours of the mind are greater than those of the body, and that arms give employment to the body alone, as if the calling were a porter's trade, for which nothing more is required than sturdy strength, or as if what we who profess them call arms, there were not included acts of vigour for the execution of which high intelligence is requisite, or as if the soul of the warrior, when he has an army, or the defence of the city under his care, did not exert itself as much by mind as by body. Nay, see whether by bodily strength it be possible to learn or define the intentions of the enemy, his plans, stratagems, or obstacles, or to ward off impending mischief, for all these are the work of the mind, and in them the body has no share whatever. Since, therefore, arms have need of the mind, as much as letters. Let us see now which of the two minds, that of the man of letters or that of the warrior, has most to do. And this will be seen by the end and goal that each seeks to attain. For that purpose is the more estimable, which has for its aim the nobler object. The end and goal of letters, I am not speaking now of divine letters, the aim of which is to raise and direct the soul to heaven. For with an end so infinite no other can be compared, I speak of human letters, the end of which is to establish distributive justice, give to every man that which is his, and see and take care that good laws are observed, an end undoubtedly noble, lofty, and deserving of high praise, but not such as should be given to that sort by arms, which have for their end and object peace, the greatest boon that man can desire in his life. The first good news the world and mankind received was that which the angels announced on the night that was our day, when they sang in the air, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth to men of good will." And the salutation which the great Master of heaven and earth taught his disciples and chosen followers when they entered any house was to say, "Peace be on this house." And many other times he said to them, "My peace I give unto you, my peace I leave you, peace be with you." A jewel and precious gift given and left by such a hand, a jewel without which there can be no happiness either on earth or in heaven. This peace is the true end of war. The war is only another name for arms. This then being admitted that the end of war is peace, and that so far it has the advantage of the end of letters, let us turn to the bodily labors of the man of letters, and those of him who follows the profession of arms, and see which are the greater. Don Quixote delivered his discourse in such a manner and in such correct language that for the time being he made it impossible for any of his hearers to consider him a madman. On the contrary, as they were mostly gentlemen, to whom arms are an appurtenance by birth, they listened to him with great pleasure as he continued. Here, then, I say is what the student has to undergo. First of all, poverty. Not that all are poor, but to put the case as strongly as possible. And when I have said that he endures poverty, I think nothing more need be said about his hard fortune. For he who is poor has no share of the good things of life. This poverty he suffers from in various ways, hunger or cold or nakedness or all together. But for all that it is not so extreme but that he gets something to eat, though it may be at somewhat unreasonable hours, and from the leavings of the rich. For the greatest misery of the student is what they themselves call going out for soup. And there is always some neighbour's brazier or hearth for them, which, if it does not warm, at least tempers the cold to them. And lastly, they sleep comfortably at night under a roof. I will not go into other particulars, as for example wants of shirts, and no superabundance of shoes, thin and threadbare garments, engorging themselves to serve it in their voracity when good luck has treated them to the banquet of some sort. By this road that I have described, rough and hard, stumbling here, falling there, getting up again and fall again, they reach the rank they desire, and that once attained, we have seen many who have passed his seats in Cius and Charybdis, as if born flying on the wings of favouring fortune. We have seen them, I say, ruling and governing the world from a chair, their hunger turned into satiety, their cold into comfort, their nakedness into fine raiment, their sleep on the mat into repose in Holland and Damask, the justly earned reward of their virtue. But contrasted and compared with what the warrior undergoes, all they have undergone falls far short of it, as I am now about to show.
唔該晒 Costa。好，咁呢一節嘅故事咧繼續推進。呢個 Don Fernando 咧好想 Don Quixote 咧可以返到去嘅故鄉啦嚇，又或者可以進行心靈洗滌啊。佢咧就誘使咗 Dorothea 咧就繼續扮呢個 Princess Mickamickin。咁所以咧就睇到呢一節嘅題目啦。呢一個歷險旅程咧似乎暫時要繼續。與此同時咧，亦都介紹咗一個新嘅角色喎嚇，作者咧又寫一個新嘅角色，咁係一個魔嚟嘅，你可以姑且當佢係伊斯蘭人啦。咁但係咧，故事就話佢唔係信呢啲伊斯蘭教嘅，佢咧嘅內心咧佢係想信天主教嘅。咁雖然佢嘅外表咧就係 Moorish 啊，咁但係咧佢內裏咧就係信奉天主教，亦都將自己個名咧 有一個阿拉伯名咧就改咗做 Maria。佢哋喺用餐嘅期間咧，當吉訶德咧就滔滔不絕啦，咁啊振振有詞咧就講真係作為佢咧就係好開心啦，因為咧作為一個騎士咧，即係有個 diversity 喺度將唔同嘅人咧都聚埋一齊，作為一個武士嘅威能有糅合嘅威能咁咧佢都有提到咧就係而家啲後生仔咧食嘢都唔溫飽呢個咧就係佢哋需要經歷嘅一啲痛楚啦。咁而作為騎士嘅痛楚咧就係好表面嘅一啲肉體上嘅痛楚，各自大家都要背負住唔同嘅嘢啦咁作為男性咧喺席間咧好多都覺得其實當吉訶德都傻唔晒都唔係咁瘋狂好合理喎咁樣。離開之前咧同大家分享幾個字啦。Deportment 名詞嚟嘅 Deportment The way a person stands or walks particularly as an element of fatigue, a person's behavior or manners 舉止儀態Swarthy 形容詞嚟嘅 Swarthy Swarthy dark complexion 個膚色咧好黝黑嘅。仲有呢個字比較少見啲 Appurtenance Appurtenance 名詞嚟嘅 an accessory or other item associated with a particular activity or style of living 一啲標誌性嘅象徵式嘅隨身物品一啲物品。文中咧就有提到男性作為守衛者啦、保護者一個手持嘅武器即係一個男性嘅標誌性物品。好，我哋呢節講到呢度，下一次再到你聽，拜拜。
If you like this video, make sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe to Costa. See you next Friday.